Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newcastle City Council special meeting. It is 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 4. The City Council will now recess to executive session for approximately 90 minutes to consider matters related to pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1.10(1)I and performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.1.110(1)G. No final actions will be taken during executive session, which is closed to the public.
it beeps once.
It beeps once this way, and that's plenty.
It's enough for the, yeah.
I forgot to turn on the microphone. You do have to do that. It just keeps going because Carol's still talking, you see. So then
Stop.
we can hit repeat and it'll do the
and it
same
just
thing, or
triggers
you
it.
can stop it. So either way.
So start,
that
stop,
resets
repeat.
to 3. That starts. Just give them a chance to.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newcastle City Council regular meeting. The City Council has just returned from executive session where they met for approximately 1 hour and discussed matters related to pending or potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I and performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101G. No final actions were taken during the executive session. And now, I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Linda Newing, and it is October 4th. It is 7 p.m. This is a public meeting and is being recorded and may be viewed later on the city's YouTube channel. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, will the city clerk please do the roll call?
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Here.
Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Villasenor.
Here.
Councilmember Lakota.
Here.
Councilmember Charbonneau. Councilmember Clark. Mayor Newing.
Here.
7 present and accounted for, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. All right. Agenda approval. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's agenda as presented? If not, I show the final agenda approved as presented. Public comment. Good evening, public. So, thank you, sir. Those wishing to speak who are in the audience will be able to speak first. We'll call upon you first in the order as you signed up. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and the neighborhood in which you reside. I know we have a couple of business owners here tonight, and if you could please state the name of your business, it looks like you signed up as well. With that, I will call, just to clarify 1 second here, those in the virtual viewing room, we will, after we finish the in-person public comment, we will call on you to speak. All right, John White.
Oh, no, it's red. So, okay, my name's John White. I've lived in Newcastle for about 32 years. I'm in Lake Washington Crest. And I've been active in the Newcastle Arts Council with Ed Flash. That's been a rewarding experience so far. I haven't inserted dance into the program yet. My wife's a dance teacher, and she's in Europe right now. When she comes back, we're going to make another attempt to get in ballroom dance into the Newcastle Arts Council. But my major concern right now is the streets that were paved, asphalt paved. They're rough. Well, to begin with, I didn't think they needed it. The streets were smooth, no problem. Yeah, occasionally there were asphalt strips across to fix cracks. So what? Is this, I guess my question is, this asphalt paving unfinished? Another thing that was kind of puzzling, they put up signs and said on the 30th, 28th, and then the 30th and what have you, and said, don't park on the street, we're going to sweep. Sweep before the fall foliage drop. It didn't make sense. And I don't know whether they actually swept something or not. But I'm here to understand what's going on and any further action that I might take. Besides gritting my teeth when I drive up my street.
Thank you, Mr. White. All right, David and Tina Burrell.
I'm David Burrell, my wife Tina sitting in the audience. We are the owners of Jersey Mike Subs. We've been neighbors of Newcastle for 27 years, living in Newport Hills. We shop in Newcastle all the time. We opened up our Jersey Mike store as our second store. Our first one was in Bothell because we couldn't find anything in Newcastle at the time. We opened 6 weeks prior to COVID. If you're unaware of Jersey Mike's, we do a grand opening where we have a large donation to a local school. We did Newcastle Elementary. A lot of people came in and supported us, and then it all died off when COVID hit. So it was a very rough year, and I want to first off thank you guys for giving us 2 grants. I think it was a $5,000 and $10,000, and that helped us stay afloat. A lot of businesses closed down. We have probably 12 to 15 employees that work with us in the Newcastle store. A lot of them are high school kids that go off to college. They're raising money for college. We have several adults that are struggling with different issues in life, and we employ them, and we do the best we can to give them a job. To let you know, our payroll is roughly about $30,000 every 2 weeks. That's $15,000 per store. So when we're struggling just to make ends meet, our choice is, do we raise prices again when minimum wage goes up another $1.50 in January? Or do we try our best to increase our number of sales that we do? That's our choice. And we've reduced down how many people work, where my manager and I are working a lot of hours just to be able to make our bills. So it's a rough time. Our numbers are increasing of our regular customers, so hopefully by next year we'll be doing really well. But it just keep the businesses in mind. I know I've talked to the Jet City owner and the Tapatios, and we're all struggling similar. Catering has been down in businesses. Jet City used to do a majority of their business to catering to T-Mobile and other local businesses, and that's almost non-existent. I drive all the way to Seattle just to do catering, and it might be a $200 order, and I don't charge them a delivery fee because that's how anxious I am just to get us to make sandwiches. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burrell. Claudia Hershey.
Good evening, Claudia Hershey. I live in the Newport Woods neighborhood. And was there more information I was supposed to give? No? Okay. I'm here to talk about the slurry seal. Councilmember Clark, thank you for continuing to work on whatever solutions we can find to the installation for that. And thank you, Councilmember Villasenor, for responding to my emails. I don't know if you've read it and haven't responded or haven't read it, but I sent a series of pictures the day after the September 30th sweeping. And I also have noted some comments from the new posting on the Newcastle website. It says, the latest sweeping work performed on Friday, September 30th has removed much of the remaining loose gravel from the roadway. Well, this was from right in front of my driveway within a few square feet. And this exists all over the place the day after sweeping. And they did not sweep the gutters at all. We watched them sweep, and it was like they're trying their hardest to just be at the edge of the slurry seal and not clean the gutters. And that's where a lot of the stones ended up. But this was from right on top of the pavement. Easy to pick up, loose. So there's no sweeping. I mean, there was sweeping, but it didn't pick up anything. So now I'm going to continue to respond to some of the information on the website. One of the purposes of the slurry seal was said to give the roadway uniform color and texture. Well, you can't achieve that. And I saw pictures, and maybe you can convince me that eventually it smooths out. But if it's installed sloppy with big rough swirls and various levels, it's not going to just magically get smooth. It's what's wrong. This poor installation isn't going to achieve that. A good installation, maybe so, but this one isn't going to achieve that. There was a punch list for the contractors shared. It said complete removal of all large aggregates. Address voids in the pavement due to those removals, basically. I think you should put a shout out or an email out to all the residents to identify, because the city staff isn't gonna be able to go through every square foot of pavement and identify these rocks. And there was one guy out there in Newport Woods the other day, a worker kind of stabbing at a rock to remove it. Come on, there's lots and lots of rocks stuck in the pavement. We're not gonna achieve, there should be an avenue for us to just constantly report it. And then the last comment was, the contractor's aggregate stockpile contained a small number of larger aggregate contaminants. I don't know what a small number is, but the number is not small. And I don't think you should be using, to use an adjective like that without defining what is small and providing some data about small is just kind of adding insult to injury. It's not small. These rocks were found within a couple square feet. That's how many rocks there are. So I don't know. At the very least, maybe delete that adjective, please. It just kind of adds insult to injury. And make sure what you produce on the website provides valuable information, not just slanting some message to make us feel happier about all the loose pebbles on our street. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hershey. All right, Mary, and I apologize, I cannot read your last name. And then Judy Peterson, I'm not sure who is speaking, or both of you, so.
My sister.
Okay.
Mary Seligway. That's my handwriting. It's kind of loopy, huh?
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Because I'm Mary Seligway, my sister Judy Peterson. We're from the Colasurdo family. Our father was Dick Colasurdo. He built the big red barn down on May Valley Road.
Mary, if you could speak into
sure.
the microphone
Is
a
that
little
better?
bit. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
So the big red barn, May Valley Road, our father built it in the 40s. And still in the family, we still have it. And we're here today to ask the status on the DeLeo Wall lawsuit. It's something that's dear to our heart. We knew the DeLeo family, and we just always assumed it would be a beautiful, heavily wooded, old-growth hillside. And we know that lawsuit's coming up end or mid-October between, I believe, Newcastle and DNR. And we're just kind of wondering what the status is, because we tried to find the latest online, and it just seems like there hasn't been too much activity. And so we were hoping that the council could speak to that and update us on what the latest is. It's a subject that's really dear to our heart. It's such a beautiful, when we go down 148 and you just look right at the DeLeo Wall. It's beautiful hillside full of trees. So not just because of the home it provides nature and all the critters that must live there, but it's also just such a beautiful part of the valley, and it always has been, and we're hoping it gets to stay that way. I'm starting to lose a little sleep over it. I think Judy is too. I can't imagine seeing it logged. Oh my gosh. So we're hoping to get an update about
Okay, and just
that
so you
lawsuit.
just so you know, we typically don't respond on the floor, but
Okay.
what I can do is we can get your email and we can get a response to you.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
Thank
that'd
you.
be great. Thank you.
of course. All right, Allison Sweeney.
I have to read notes, stay on point. I'm Allison Sweeney. My husband and I own Frosty Barrel, and we live with our 3 daughters on Olympic Ridge. I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Newing, Deputy Mayor Sherlock, Councilmember Villasenor, and Councilmember Charbonneau for your continued support for our small business community. I have enjoyed my conversations with you. Thank you for asking the questions, listening to my concerns, and trying to understand the position of some of our small business owners in Newcastle. When we came up with the idea for Frosty Barrel, it was in the fall of 2019 when Zoe Yogurt closed. And by the spring of 2020, we had a permit in hand to start building. And then COVID came. And everything blew wide open. Prices for everything went up. We all had to pivot. We had to spend tons of money on PPE if you could even get a hold of it. And sometimes we couldn't even open our store because of staffing shortages. But we, Frosty Barrel and Dave, we still invested in our community. We were a major sponsor for the Newcastle auction in 2021. We have fundraised with multiple elementary schools and clubs in the Bellevue, Renton, and Issaquah school districts. And we have kept giving back to the community, making donations, hoping that the community would invest back into us. And you have, so thank you very much. To the council members, the $200,000 allocated to the businesses and the nonprofit community that you're voting on tonight is a really great start using the ARPA funds as directed by the federal government. But I don't know if you've thought about the math. If 20 businesses apply, that is an average of $10,000 per business. If 40 of us apply, that's 5. That does not even cover rent for 1 month. The total amount of money, along with the current proposal, is less than 10% of the $3.4 million entrusted to the city of Newcastle. I have to be honest, paying my rent for 1 month is not relief. The program was not intended for cities to hold on to 85% of the funds. It's meant to be a relief program. Less than 10% is not relief. I have been a Newcastle paying citizen, tax-paying citizen since 2006. I think we can all agree that Newcastle has had a budgeting issue long before COVID started. ARPA funds are not the issue that balances your budget. The two are separate, and they should be treated as so. ARPA funds are meant to be relief, so we can all take a collective breath, attempt to get back to where we wanted to be today, and after approving the number, where we wanted to be after approving the numbers tonight, please come together, follow up with another solution that gives relief not only to the city, but to your local businesses as it is intended to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sweeney. All right, the virtual world. And again, while our city clerk is checking that, just a reminder to those out virtually, please state your name and neighborhood in which you reside, and we will allow you 3 minutes. You should hear a beeper go off. We have a microphone nearby.
So I'd like to ask any of our attendees who would like to speak to please raise your hand electronically in the attendee room, and then we'll promote you in to provide your comments. Okay, Madam Mayor, I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public comment. Okay, we have no ceremonial presentations tonight. Council comment. Councilmember Villasenor, what do you have for us?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for attending tonight. My thoughts go out to the people who've been affected by Hurricane Ian this week. It brings it very much front of mind to encourage people to prepare for unexpected things that happen. Nature can be wild and unforgiving. The state used to have a 3 days, 3 ways program that they encourage people to do that has given way to 2 weeks of preparedness. And while that might feel like a stretch, I think I would like to encourage people to take steps to prepare for themselves and for their families in the event of an emergency. The state has a number of resources available online, and I all wish us the best, and I also wish the people affected by the hurricane all the best.
Thank you. Councilmember Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Thank you, folks, for showing up tonight. I appreciate seeing some of the citizens in the audience and listening to what goes on and listening to you and your comments. So thank you so much for showing up. I feel it necessary to inform my colleagues and the public the City of Newcastle was awarded by the federal government replacement revenue due to the pandemic These funds are not funds of the staff. They also are not funds of the council. These funds belong to the residents of Newcastle, just as though they were coming to us from property taxes, sales taxes, and development fees. The duty of the staff and the council are to safeguard and protect these funds. The council was sold on the idea that we needed a consultant to help the cities spend these funds and stay out of trouble with the feds, because the rules were too complicated to read. However, by the time we hired the consultant, it was learned that the rules didn't apply to Newcastle because we hadn't received enough funds. So it was decided to change the duties of the consultant to come up with a plan to disperse these funds. We spent a lot of money on a consultant for what? The consultant's first effort to survey certain people failed, then decided to survey the council and came up with 14 categories for dispersing the ARPA funds. The council made an attempt to pare down these categories with little success. It was then decided to take this to the general public at the town hall meeting with a lot of questions the attendees were to answer. Out of 150 people, including staff and council, the majority of the people on 3 different questions told the council to hang on to the funds and use them for sustainability. In a council meeting, our interim city manager stated that those people at the town hall meeting were not representative of the city. Didn't understand that. We led them to believe they were having input in how these funds should be used. Obviously, it was decided what the people want is not important, and let a couple of people decide the demise of these funds. It is this kind of city government our citizens should be expected to trust and confidence with their staff and elected council members. I believe the citizens realize that if these funds go away, they will soon be expected to come up with a tax burden to take care of the difference. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Lakota.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. Thank you for the public comments, and I just want to say sorry again for the substandard work done by the Doolittle contractors, and that our citizens have to come week after week and and see no changes to the street, to the slurry project. And I just want to say that we have been in touch with the staff and spoken to the city manager, and Scott is working with Jeff and team and trying to negotiate with the contractor, and he is going to give an update during his city manager comments. Secondly, I want to congratulate Shelley D'Souza for being elected as the CSC member. I think she is going to be a great addition to the team. Thank you.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
I would like to elevate a bit. There was the Anti-Defamation League had a share recently where the 41st district, which is our district, as well as the 11th district, which is our district immediately to the south. So all of the legislators from those two districts condemned. There's in the last couple of weeks, someone had gone around sharing, putting around hateful papers that were anti-Semitic. I wanted to also strongly condemn that and encourage folks of all faith to be welcome in Newcastle and feel safe in Newcastle, and thank them for taking the steps to do that. I just wanted to highlight that to folks. I'd also like to thank the Urbanist magazine. They live tweeted our last meeting as well as wrote an article on their website about what was being discussed. I encourage folks to go read that and take a look. It's not always that Newcastle gets a platform to be considered, and I think gives us a good sense of what we can consider and what kind of work we can reasonably do in the region.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. Thank you for the public comment, specifically John and Claudia. I know I share your frustrations with the streets. I have been working with our city manager and Jeff, who's not here tonight. I know there's a lot of punch list items left to do, right? So they've swept. They didn't do a very good job, I agree. And unfortunately, they left the signs up, which said sweeping on September 30th. So now they're going to become background noise. And unfortunately, the next time they're needed, nobody's going to pay attention. So we do have a lot to do, right? They did not do a good job. I understand that. One of the comments was if that had been done right, and maybe it would fade over time, but there's a lot of swirls. I agree with you, a lot of bare spots. I sent some additional photos today to the city manager and Jeff. I was out walking, and they're really obvious. So we will keep working to get this right. There is a actual 1 year of time frame where the contractor needs to be, can be held accountable to fix things. So we'll make sure that gets done. So thank you. Keep up the focus. I'm sorry you have to feel like you have to come every week to say something, but we are working on it. The other thing I would say is that in about 6 weeks' time, there's Veterans Day, which is a Friday this year, November 11th. It's my tentative plan to have a small ceremony or service out here by City Hall. I haven't discussed this with the city manager yet. That's why this started to look on his face. But I've been working with my VFW post, and we'll have a small, simple ceremony, changing the flag, that kind of thing. And I'll talk to you more about it after this, but more details to follow on that. So put that on your calendar. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just reiterate, thank you all for coming out for public comment. It's very helpful for us. So thank you. I know it takes a lot to do it too. We're all busy. And sorry, it's a little weird when you ask questions and we can't answer right away, but that's just kind of how it is. Sorry about that. I also wanted to congratulate Shali D'Souza for the appointment on the CAC, the Community Activities Commission. I worked with her at Hazelwood on the PTSA, and she's amazing, and I'm excited for her to bring her great ideas and work ethic to the CAC, so I'm excited for her. And last, just a quick happy birthday to my husband, 10-4, good buddy.
That was going to be for me. You had me worried, no. Soon. All right, thank you. Moving on, reports, I guess. Let me talk into the mic. Practice what I preach, apparently. Mayor comments. I just have a couple of brief things. So I want to point out that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it is not a stranger to Newcastle, unfortunately. Thanks to Chief of Police Jason Houck and City Manager Scott Pingle, I want to share the following information with you. These are the numbers of reports of domestic violence reported here in Newcastle. And although not all go reported, some are verbal disturbances that do not go reported. You can definitely see an increase since 2020, which is what we're hearing all over the news during the pandemic. This began to rise drastically. But in 2020, the city of Newcastle had 20 reports. 2021, that increased to 28. We are through, I believe these are through August, Scott, the numbers, probably, yeah. So they're not 100% current, but through the reported time that Chief has data, 2022 year-to-date 29, so already we're surpassing our 2021 numbers. Do not let this go to be silent. If you know something, say something for sure. These are people we don't want to see hurt, and we want to stop this harm. Another thing, I happened to run into Kelly Nomura over the weekend, and if you recall, Kelly was here at our last council meeting and accepted the National Recovery Month proclamation. She stopped me. I didn't quite remember who she was immediately, but she introduced herself, and she wanted to give us some congratulations on how well we managed the public comment during our last meeting. And as you may or may not know, we had over an hour of public comment that night. So it was definitely a feel-good moment for me, and I appreciated her recognition. And that is all I have for you tonight. So, council committees, finance committee, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We had the state come in and they had performed our accountability audit and presented their findings as clean, not surprisingly. Thank you to Director Palmer and his staff for the work that they do, and they were very complimentary of how we go about our business from a financial standpoint. So we should all be proud of that. I know we will come around to budget discussions at some point in the future during a later date. But just to flag that the economy and in terms of housing development and specifically has really affected our revenue around development permits and permit revenue. So that's just something to keep an eye on as we move through the rest of this year, knowing that it's likely we'll come up way short in that regard, even though we have as a council and a city have approved a number of developments. No one's making them build those things, so hopefully economy will pick up and at some point, and we'll be able to catch up, but probably not this year.
Thank you. And there was no salary and benefits committee meeting. Regional committees, any regional council member, Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
I attended the King County Regional Transit Committee September 21st. I was given orientation. Newcastle, things of note for us, Newcastle is being considered along 3 different potential bus lines in the plan for the next decade. I'll try to advocate my best to, have those be under consideration. It's under consideration right now, and I would love to see us get more bus access and free transit for folks 18 and under. Absolutely, that is a new initiative this year. Take advantage of that.
All right, any other regionals? Okay. City manager.
See if I can figure out how to work the mic. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to highlight just a little bit of Slurry Seal information as far as that project goes. Super appreciate the feedback, especially on the information that went out today, got put on the website and got sent out specifically to Mike Blodgett, and he had volunteered to distribute that to the Newport and Woods Community Club, and certainly appreciate feedback on that information and how we can improve it. We're trying to just get good information out to the community. A couple of things that I just want to point out about the project and how we move forward from here. Currently, the project is not accepted. There are things that are out of spec, which means that they're not according to the plan, and they have to fix those and make them according to the plan. And certainly the large rocks and aggregate is a part of that, where they pull those out of the street and leave gashes in the street is a part of that, and getting rock out of the large loose gravel is a part of that. And we'll continue to work with the contractor and hold their feet to the fire. The biggest challenge as we move forward is for those residents, as we work with the contractor, is just that we can't force a timeline that's outside of what we have in our contract with them, which doesn't necessarily require them to be very, very fast about it. So where for those residents, it seems like nothing is going on, or what's going on hasn't been effective, and that's true. And we'll continue to press on the contractor to be as swift as possible in correcting the poor performance. And so appreciate that. Please, if you have specific areas, reach out, and we'll point those out and mark those for the contractor as we move forward. So that's all I have.
So for the specific area, do you want like a nearest intersection or a street? Just so you guys are getting the right information.
Yeah, if you have stuff in front of your house or you just see stuff, yeah, that'd be great. If you have an address or anything like that. We also have the C-Click Fix app that you can use as well. That's generally for staff to go fix something, which we're trying to hold the contractor's feet to the fire. But that's certainly an avenue to let us know where things are, either loose gravel, big rocks, areas that are obviously unacceptable. So.
Thank you, City Manager Pingle. All right, consent agenda. Is there any objection to approval of tonight's unanimous consent agenda as presented? Seeing none, I show the consent agenda as approved as presented. Ooh, that's a tongue twister tonight. Okay, moving on. No, we have no public hearings. We have no unfinished business, general business. We have item 11.1, adoption of resolution 2022-910, adoption of pandemic relief funds. City Manager Pingle.
I'm gonna have Don introduce our management partners consultant.
Yeah, we have Steve Toller here on Zoom, and he's going to provide a PowerPoint presentation, and then I'll follow up with any comments. Go ahead, Steve.
Great, thanks, Don. Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council members. Just FYI, I'm not seeing any of you tonight. All I'm seeing is just a black screen. So hopefully you can see me, and that's not all important, that's for sure. So anyway, so let me just share a brief slide deck with you about the item that's before you tonight. City Council is asked to review a summary of the prior direction that you provided back in August as related to the categories that were selected for the pandemic relief funding.
Steve, can I pause you for a sec?
Do you need me to pause?
Yeah, we got some technical difficulties on this end. Okay. Can you start over? Starting right now? Yep, looks good. Okay, go ahead, Steve, start over.
We can't hear him.
Steve, you're muted. Steve, are you sure you're unmuted? Did you promote him? Is he promoted? You don't have to promote him. He's already in the panel. Oh.
This happened last week, Paul, and Jeff wrote down a special note to himself. Remember that?
Ooh, that'd be lovely if you were here to read it. Okay, yeah. So, Mr. Toller is leaving the Zoom meeting, and he's coming back in. And hopefully that will fix the problem. So, we'll give him a second to do that. Still not working. Yes, I can see that.
Steve, try now. Steve, I've stopped the VIA presenter. Can you test the microphone now?
Check test 1, 2.
There's something with the VIA system. You're going to have to.
Test 1, 2.
We can hear you, Steve.
Oh, that's a good thing.
So try, but the problem is I can't show your presentation to the live stream. That appears to be what is interfering with your audio. So we're going to have you go ahead and
I can present it, maybe?
there's not a way for me to put it up on the screen.
I have it right there.
You will have to, hold on a moment. So for the benefit of everyone who's at home trying to figure out what's going on, and for your benefit, council members, the difficulty appears to be in the interaction between the program that runs our presentations and shows them on that screen, which is also wired into our video system so we can show it on the live stream, okay, and the audio from our participant. And that's about the best I can tell you. I don't know anything more than that. And so hopefully this will fix the problem.
Can you see this? See the PowerPoint, Steve? Okay. So
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you. I'm going to go put it in slideshow. And
Sure.
Okay. So you just tell me when you want to go. I'm going to go on.
Yeah, sure. So you can go to the next slide. Again, thank you, council members, for having me here tonight. We just wanted to review briefly a summary of the city council's direction from the prior meeting.
Hang on.
I lost the slide deck.
You can see it. I'm sorry, Steve. Please hold on. Just if you can see
Sure.
it, me and anyone else can. We're not gonna be able to- This is going to create the same problem all over again. Minimize it, just, yeah, pull it down a little bit. And go over here to the video. Okay, let's find out if we can present now and still get Steve. It's just muted him.
Okay.
Ask him to.
All right. Can you share the screen now, maybe?
No.
Oh, what do you want?
This one, right?
Yep. Okay.
Now, find out if we can hear Steve.
Can I hear you now, Steve?
No.
We can't hear you. Don't want to share the screen. Have we not done this before? I thought we had.
This has not been a problem before. Apparently, this was a problem at the last meeting, temporarily.
Yeah, we did have a similar problem, and I remember Jeff going through and he took it and he wrote down which settings got the right solution. I saw him over there doing it, but I didn't expect him to be here, right? I'm sorry.
He shared them with you? Oh, didn't share them with me either. So, summary. We can hear Steve, or we can see his PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to make a 5-minute recess, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
And we're going to print out the slides, and then we're going to have Steve exit and come back into the meeting so we can hear what he has to say, and everyone can have a copy in front of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
And some for the audience.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so we will take a 5-minute break and reconvene promptly at, what is it, 7:51. I hate military time.
Hey, Steve, are you there still? Steve, do you hear me? Yeah, I'm not hearing you. I tried something different here on the mute button.
That's what I thought Jeff went.
Okay, I can see you now. Try that. Keep testing me. I'm trying different things here. Let's see. Switch to phone audio, leave audio, computer, test speakers and microphone. That worked. But that's not what I wanted to do. It must be for, this must be for our audio, not his.
After your test, can you test that?
He went through, watching this, not specifically, but he was looking on the unmute section and he picked one of those and then went to the video one, he picked one of the other ones. And
Okay.
he wrote those two down.
Let me try some different.
He selected one on the audio side and one on the video side. I watched that. It's coming to me now already. But, yeah, because he was having the same problem. It was a public one. He had the same problem.
That's weird. You can see me. I just clicked that box. Can you hear me?
Don, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, so that worked.
Test 1, 2.
Yep, that works. Can you hear me? Well, I clicked the wrong box here. Can you hear me now? Try something else. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now you can hear me. Oh, hang on. I just clicked the. Now can you hear me? Now I can't hear you. I just did a minute ago. Okay, now can you hear me?
Check, check.
Yep, that works.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh. Okay. I can hear you. Let's see, test speakers, switch to audio, phone audio. I don't want to do that, do I? Don't want to do that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, hello?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? For heaven's sakes. Can you hear me now?
Everybody here? Okay, we are ready to reconvene.
Can you hear me now? Bummer. Can you hear me now? Man, I've clicked every box. Can you hear me now?
So, Steve, what we're going to do,
He can't hear us.
he can't hear us now.
No, I've been clicking these.
Okay. Well,
Can you hear me now? I was going through the selections here, trying to pick one of these. Which one?
no, don't do that. Steve, can you say something for us? Can you hear us?
He can't hear us.
Sound system speakers. That is correct. That's true. Yeah. All right. Now, Steve. Steve, I think you can hear us now. Is that true? No.
I thought click here.
Select a microphone. Digital interface. All right, Steve, can you hear us?
No. I can't hear him.
Is this system?
Two?
There we go. Okay. All right, can you hear us, Steve?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
We
Yep.
can hear you.
Now we can, finally. Now.
Test 1, 2.
Yeah, we can hear you fine. It's the sharing the screen part we're worried about. That didn't.
As long as the presentation's off, that's not going to be possible. So there's no point in doing that. For Steve and for council members, I do not have a way that I know at this point to show Steve to you. But we can hear him, and you all have the presentation in front of you. Members of the audience have it as well. And for those of you who are watching this meeting on the live stream, or the recording after the fact, this presentation will be appended to the meeting agenda, so you will have access to it. I just don't have a way to show it to you right now.
Can I try something real quick? I'm not going to mess with the mic. Let's just stay here for a sec. Now, if I do this, is that going to lose it?
No, you can do that, but it's only going to show it to you on this screen.
On that screen?
Yes.
Not his.
Nobody else can see it because it has to go through here.
Will he see it so that he can talk at the same time?
Well, I presume Steve has it in front of him.
But I want to be able, okay.
I don't have a way to show it to Steve.
Do I have a way to share it with the community?
No.
Okay. No way.
That's why they have paper copies.
All right. All right. Never mind.
Yeah. Not that I know.
Okay.
So you're good to go.
I'm good to go. All right.
You know, Steve can speak. Your mic is live. You can speak.
All right. Steve, you're ready to go. I don't know. I think you can only see the screen in front of me and not the rest of the group or the council. So
Yeah.
we'll just go that way. So go ahead.
Sure. Okay. So we're on slide 2. Everybody can hear me okay? Just say yes.
Yes.
Great. Thanks. So again, we're here tonight to review a summary of your prior direction on the use of the pandemic relief funds and the funding amounts, and then ultimately review and approve the an implementation action plan that has been provided to you. We've worked with staff in presenting or preparing an implementation action plan for your consideration. Don, if you would go to the next slide, please. Just as a recap of what's included in the implementation action plan based on the prior action that you took in August was to expend the $2.4 million that's remaining of the previous ARPA funds in the community, and it's in accordance with what the table is that you're seeing on this slide number 3, and that is included in the implementation action plan. Don, if you go to slide 4, just wanted to give you a brief overview of really what that implementation action plan is. So there's a cover sheet on it, of course. It gives you some of this information. But as you'll see with the tables that are attached to that, for each of the proposed investment opportunities that you're planning on making with these funds, there is a list of key implementation tasks that you'll need to do. Basically, what is it that you need to do to complete this project? Who would that would be assigned to, the lead responsibility as a staff member that would be responsible for implementation. Also created a column here for the businesses that would be assisted in terms of an estimate related to the first 2 items that are on there. The proposed funding and cost estimate that was based on the action that you previously took. The timeline in which each of these tasks would be implemented. And then there's some items in there with respect to comments or additional details that you might need to read. And there's a couple of those that are critical, especially with respect to the business and nonprofit funding investments, as well as the economic development items as well. But you'll see the various comments that are included in the IAP. Dawn, if you go to the next slide, again, really what is being asked here is that you will review that IAP contained in your agenda packet, and then approve that IAP so that staff can move forward with implementation of the proposed uses of these funds. With respect to next steps, which is the last slide that I'll talk through here, Don, if you wouldn't mind going to that final slide. The next steps that we'll be seeking with respect to for the city really is that once the IEP is approved, then staff moves forward with implementation of that plan. There will be policy items, though, that you're going to have to address as staff starts putting to the meat on the bones, if you will, almost, with respect to each of the items. And so they may be needing to come back to you, or they may be coming back to you for more action. For example, with an infrastructure improvement, you'll need to perhaps approve contracts as they come up. So, but based on the actions that you'll be taking, the projects then will then be added to the current budget via budget amendment for fiscal 22, to the extent that it's expected that some of these funds might be expended before the end of this current fiscal year, or would be included in the 23-24 budget, just again, based on the timing of each of these items. So with that, I apologize for the technology issues that you had there, but that really summarizes kind of my thoughts in terms of the IAP. We worked with staff in being able to develop this, and I will turn it now back to Dawn for any closing comments, and also Scott, your city manager. Thanks.
Thank you. So what we have is a resolution, and the agenda bill kind of addresses who's going to be in charge of it. But a big summary for the audience is that we have, I'll go back to this one here, where on page 3 of the book, you see that we have about $450,000 towards either business or economic development steered towards businesses, and then city facilities and repair and maintenance of $425,000. And what the resolution does is it directs staff to provide an action plan with regards to the use of $875,000, with left over $1.5 million yet to be determined, which would be currently set aside for fiscal sustainability initiatives and/or future needs, whatever that might be. And so Scott and I talked a bit today. Do you want to carry some water on light on the other things we've discovered?
Yeah, so a question that came up at the August 27th budget workshop was potential uses of Reit. And so we've been looking into that quite a bit, just to make sure that we kind of had our heads around how Reit can be used, what's considered a capital project versus maintenance of a capital project, and then just certainly looking, towards the 2023 budget. The council would have the option of using Reit funds for the $425,000 that's currently identified for city facilities repair and maintenance. The general projects that we've talked about, primarily having to do with annex improvements, Reit funds would be eligible to be used for those if the council deemed that necessary or wanted to use those funds in that way. What that does, as far as what's in front of you right now, is $425,000 gets freed up either to be added to the fiscal sustainability piece or either of the other two pieces as far as business help and assistance and economic development.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Do we have to make that decision tonight?
So I don't know that you have to make the decision on where to send it tonight. And you can approve this as it is. If you want to, if it gets approved as it is, the direction to staff is to use it for that purpose. And so if that's something that we want to continue to discuss, it's certainly something that could be decided as a part of the budget for 2023. And I guess there's a few ways we could do that. You can throw it into the fiscal sustainability piece because we're going to decide on it later, and that 1.5 million that's currently in that piece is there to be decided on later as it is. So certainly you can throw it into that tranche, or you can approve it as it is, and then that'll be something that we would identify and amend in the future as a part of the 2023 budget.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, comments? Any motions? Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I have a comment, actually. I wanted to share, and please, you can consider this an extension of public comment, perhaps, but it's a business owner that I talked to at Newcastle Days. I was going around trying to ask, some of our tents, what they needed, what they were up to, and this individual wanted to come comment tonight but could not, and gave me permission to share their statement. So this is from Jiao Kaplan, who owns the Rejuve Med Spa back in the Newcastle Commons. And she is a Newcastle resident, and I'll read what she said verbatim. Rejuve is a small business that is family owned. We spend roughly 5 to 10% of our revenue on marketing, as is the average industry standard. One of the most effective means of advertising, in my opinion, and I've seen, is brand awareness. Simply having a sign on Coal Creek would signify to a large number of people that businesses do exist in our community that are not well known. While offering grants to small businesses is generous, the amount available, if all businesses applied, wouldn't go very far in terms of even covering 1 month's rent. However, having a sign would serve as a better strategy to draw people into the businesses to generate revenue. I believe having signage would be hugely beneficial and cost-effective with long-term impact. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Jiao Kaplan, MD.
Yes, I had that same conversation with her, not at Newcastle Days, but a different time. That signage may be needed at the Commons, and, perhaps some of this funding can go to that down the road. I don't know what the development agreement is. That's for our experts in the room. Any other comments, questions? You have a question? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm not sure if this question should go to Steve or Director Palmer, but the first, so for everyone following along, we're looking at our agenda packet, and there's that's where the implementation plan is, in case you're wondering. And the first thing on there is the project is called Business and Nonprofit Organization Grants. And there's 200,000 is the proposed funding. And there's a lot of talk about working, utilizing One East Side Working Washington Grant Round 5 grant program. And I guess my question is this 200,000, how does that work exactly? Like, are we putting money towards that program and then we're helping our businesses get grants from that program, or are we granting from the 200,000 to our business? Can you help me out with that a little bit?
Steve, do you want to tackle that, or do you want me to?
Let me just briefly indicate that my understanding of the One East Side Working Washington project was that the city would be able to supplement some of the funds that they have that would go directly towards Newcastle businesses. So for example, if a business were to apply when the program is available for funding through the WW5 grant program, the city could match that dollar for dollar, 2 for 1, whatever the policy direction is that you have, to be able to augment those funds that would be able to work through that. Or if the businesses were somehow not able to get any of that grant funding for whatever reason, the city could say, okay, well, you weren't able to get it from WW5, we're going to still, provide some funding for you because we understand that will help you. So there were some options that would be available, and those are the policy type issues. Unfortunately, WW5, the grant application period, has already lapsed, and so the question would be, if in the future they do something like that or somebody else does something like that, you would be able to partner with that.
So, yeah, as Steve pointed out, that ended September 9th, that WW5 grant. And so we're hopeful that there are other grants, but, I think we did a lot of research in this past week on the $425,000, and because that grant expired, I don't know that there's going to be more of those or not. I noticed Department of Commerce did one today, and it was something that we wouldn't probably use, which is brownfields improvement and cities able to leverage towards projects that would create, I don't want to say a port, but something of that nature where you provide something for a larger project that benefits numerous businesses. So that wouldn't, I didn't see that helping us, but their Department of Commerce has money to spend still that is still part of the ARPA. The whole idea of this $250,000, which is economic development, marketing, and small technical assistance, was to not only use the $200,000 that we would provide, but to leverage the other money that's not just that allocated to the city of Newcastle, because there's lots of money out there for that. So unfortunately, we're on the tail end of that, end of the first 5 rounds that they've done already. So my preference, because you didn't ask, but I'm going to give you a recommendation, is that the 425 not be used for the facilities and use Reit for that money instead. Councilmember LaCosia had us look into that. We did our due diligence. It took a while to go through some of the specifics, but to free that money up. And you could leverage that towards small business, or I'm not telling you what you should do, but you could certainly do that. And then I'm pretty sure we have $860,000 that is 2022 fiscal relief from the ARPA money in the first round. I had shared with Scott that if we every year we've been underspending our budget. There's been some things in the department that, some departments that we know, like executive, that were unforeseen in the 2022 budget that we're gonna go over. However, there are other things that were unforeseen that we're gonna go under. And I believe we're gonna have a surplus. And so in January, February, when we close those books, currently, if the projections fall true, we'll have $500,000 in surplus. My recommendation would be to not transfer that $860,000, but only 300 of it, if it's a 500,000, I'm just using an example, but a $500,000 surplus would bring this 1.5 million up, plus the 400 to 1.9, plus another 500 on top of that possibly. So don't be fearful that if you raise these other two, one of these other two buckets, that you can't, you're not going to have enough for economic or fiscal sustainability later, because we'll have that. The Reit fund is really flush. We've had a number of high dollar sales because mortgage real estate has been active up until September. It cut in half, but up until that point, it's been really healthy, and it's created more money than what we ever thought we'd have, with 3 large developments that sold, because we're not speculative on development sales. So Reit's healthy, and you can only use it for capital. Okay, so this money can be used in a more it's not as restrictive because of that resolution that the city council passed April 5th, providing, and then the intent is to still continue to use pandemic relief for the intent of what the ARPA money was used for. So the council's eliminated into these 4 buckets, and from the large number that we had 18 originally, and so management partners helped us weed through all of that limitations to these final 4. So my recommendation is to stick to these 4, but if you want to add more to one of the other 2 buckets, or both buckets, or the 3rd bucket, whichever one you want to do, you can. That'd be my recommendation. So the resolution would change to not that I'm asking for, which is to direct staff to create it. So we have to have an ordinance to do a budget amendment, and we have 2 of those that we're going to be doing this year. One is for a budget amendment for 22, and then council's going to go through the budget process for 2023. To get it in the hands of the businesses, we're going to act upon the 2022, which is, I'm going to be presenting that in the next months, but that doesn't stop staff from, by this resolution, from acting on it. And the lead on that is my good old buddy, new buddy, Mark. So he's going to be the lead on the businesses. So and I'll provide any assistance he needs technically.
So the quickest way to get money out for relief is to pass this resolution tonight, and potentially we could add to it later, or we could add money to it tonight.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Villasenor.
Knowing full well that the amendments are coming, I move adoption of Resolution 2022-910 Pandemic Relief Funds Implementation Action Plan as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, to adopt Resolution 2022-910 Pandemic Relief Funds Implementation Plan as presented. Councilmember Villasenor, would you like to speak to your motion? Councilmember Lakota?
I have an amendment.
Okay.
I move that city facilities repair and maintenance of $425,000 be moved into fiscal sustainability.
Second.
Okay, can you pass that down, please? It's been moved by Councilmember Lakota, seconded by Councilmember Clark, that city facilities repair and maintenance of $425,000 be moved into fiscal sustainability. Councilmember Lakota, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So as stated by our finance director, and we had already discussed that during our budget session, that it would be a good idea to use REITs for it, and we can put this in the fiscal sustainability. And I just want to state out few facts here. We are already sitting on a 1.1 million budget deficit for 2023. We've already used some, we used what, 881 last year from the ARPA funds to cover up the deficit in 2022. We've already seen public safety costs have gone up. Infrastructure costs have gone up, and we've already heard issues from the slurry project. You never know. We are still working with the contractor, but infrastructure costs are all up. Today in the news, 86% of the CEOs predicted recession as per KPMG survey, and then the United Nations has predicted recession. It's not me, it's the top CEOs of the country, 86%. Last month, there was a 60% layoff in the engineering department at T-Mobile. They are right in our neighborhood. We have a lot of T-Mobile residents living in Newcastle. Interest rates are up. It's no news for us. We all know interest rates are up. We have already seen development revenue going down, and they are predicted to go up again. So, I do not know if this is a good time to invest in the economy when everything, all the prices are up, everything is up, and there's so much uncertainty. So that's what I feel. I think for us, we should be talking more about public safety, looking at the news every day. There is so much happening in the, it was last month when our chief came and gave us the reports, and we all saw, even in Newcastle, in a small city like Newcastle, the crime rates have gone up exponentially. We have public safety issue lingering in the planning calendar for ages now. It's been there for 2 years. Myself and Councilmember Clark, when we took this council, we put that last year. Councilmember Griffin had it when he was on the council. So it's been lingering there for for 2 years, but none of us want to talk about it. And every time you do a survey, every time we go out to the citizens, what is the first thing that they say? Public safety is my top priority. Infrastructure is my second priority. Those are the basic things that we should be working as a city. And given the deficits and given the things that we are seeing, I think the best way to save is right now, let's just put these monies aside and just wait and see how things turn up. So, and that's why, and we have already seen, that we can use REITs for it. So I think this would be a logical way to use these funds. Thank you.
Councilmember Clark, would you like to add anything?
Thank you, Mayor Nguyen. Really simply, we're asking in this implementation plan for staff to go make a plan to do something with this money. But if they don't need to do that, it saves a lot of time and effort for the staff, and we have this money available from REIT. So it makes perfect sense to me that we would go to the other bucket where it's more applicable to use this for capital. This is a capital project, obviously. So it provides the money to be put back in to the fiscal sustainability for our future imminent deficits, and it allows the staff not to have to do this work, and with the money is already available. So we're not eliminating this project. We're simply saying we're going to take the money from a more appropriate spot and still get the benefit of getting a generator and the things we want to do with this money. So pretty simple to me. And just to expound on public safety comment that Councilmember Claudia mentioned, we got a report recently from our chief, chief of police, and it escapes me what form this came to us, but we were talking in our budget retreat about public safety, and he mentioned a whole bunch of variety of things that each officer could use in their car. And I recently saw a figure, and I'm sorry, I can't remember, I just saw it, and it might have been an email, was extensive amount of money that we could spend, perhaps, if we did not spend this money on a generator, we could use it to re-equip our cars with shields You know, there was helmets, there was LiDAR, there was other things that we could use for public safety. So this money could better be spent elsewhere, and we already have a bucket for it. And I think it's great to put it back where we could use it for the future.
Anything else? Deputy Mayor Sherlock, go ahead.
Thank you. I am fine with supporting this amendment because, yes, we can use Reit, which for the audience is real estate excise tax. So just so you know what the acronym is. Both of these are one-time money. Reit comes in when real estate gets sold. This came in as a grant from the federal government. So, it's just kind of moving money around. It's all important. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm happy to make this change and take this money from a different area. That does not mean that I'm now going to ask for more money for pandemic relief, because that's what this money is supposed to be for.
All right, Councilmember Charbonneau.
Thank you. I think so I think everyone heard the sort of dialogue that, the 425,000 could be REIT money, and then, we can use that money in another place. So essentially moving it back to the bucket of fiscal sustainability and other future needs. My concern, which I agree with the folks that have spoke, my concern is just that if we were to do that after we do that, there needs to be, right now it's a pretty restrictive process. I think you mentioned there would need to be an ordinance on Finance Director Palmer to move forward on something, right? And we're already, before this, we were only spending less than 37% of the money we had left. Now it's going to be even less if we move the 425,000 over. There needs to be mobility for us to actually do that. Maybe we do want to apply more to local businesses. Maybe we do want to look at different public safety initiatives. It can't be, you spoke eloquently, I think, about how we've already missed out on multiple grant opportunities because we've sat on this for so long. Most other cities acted on this well before we did. There needs to be, if we're going to do this, there needs to be a clear process. And I guess that's my ask of staff and my concern I'm expressing to staff right now. For one, how do we define another future need? How do we get money sent there? Because I think there are needs. I think there are places where I would like to invest in our community, and I think we need to have more of those conversations. I don't think we've had enough of those conversations, and I think it's a really big concern that needs to be talked about.
Councilmember Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. This money didn't just fall out of the heavens and fall into our laps. It was awarded to us by the federal government for revenue that we lost during the pandemic. That's what it's all about.
Okay, I do have a comment. First of all, I've always been a fan of supporting small local business. That's how I was raised. I'd like to see this money go to them, or a portion of it. It just sickens me that we continued to debate and debate meeting after meeting and failed to take action and agree when we could have directed our businesses to these grant programs that were available. It just makes me sick. We have some business owners out here tonight that I've gotten to know fairly well. It's not because I go in and buy sandwiches every week. It's not because I go eat ice cream. It's because I've made the concerted effort to walk in their door and say, Dave, how you doing? Allison, how you doing? They're working so hard that I don't always catch up to them when I drop in. But I want to thank you for your support of this community. And I was scared to death in 2020 when I had 6 new businesses open in our downtown. And today I can proudly say they're still there. Good work. We're here for you. I believe that at some point, and I am committed to do this, it will be easier for me to persuade council members to take a portion of this money and support these businesses. I want to get this done. So, you know, I don't feel 100% great about dumping this into a pot called fiscal sustainability. But to me, I feel like I'm choosing the lesser of the two evils. If I make that commitment to my business owners out here and other business owners and say, I will continue to work to provide more funding to you, more grant opportunities, and hopefully there are more resources for this, and to get you that help to track down those resources. You know, I stay in contact with you. I really try to do that, but please feel free to reach out to me, and I want to thank you for coming tonight. Any further comments? Councilmember Clark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So there's been, I think there's a misunderstanding here, and I want to make sure we clear this up. So these East Side Working Washington grants, I seem to have the impression that some of my colleagues believe that if we don't pass this, a business will never find out about these grants. This is not a Newcastle grant. So Director Palmer, correct me if I'm wrong, any business at any time prior to their expiration could have gone out and applied for these grants. It's got nothing to do with us allotting money for this or helping them, right? So this is, I want to clear that up, because it sounds like we're some kind of villain because we don't pass this, they don't get these grants. That's two apples and oranges, right?
So what this money does, I'm not going to answer it in that way. What this money does is that businesses, I work in a small business. You're working your butt off and you don't have time, you don't even know about these things. What this money does, and I'm a proponent, actually, I'll just tell you, I'm a proponent of the small business. So shoot me down for that, but I think that what this does is it provides funding enough to where they get assistance about knowing about the grants to apply for them and how to. I've talked to some of the business members out in the community when I have lunch there too, and they tell me the same darn thing. So you're right, they could go out and apply for those themselves. Do they have the ability or the know-how? Not unless they have the information, and that's what this does. Okay, so yes, I think it does help them. That's my opinion.
Okay, with Councilmember Lakota, then we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment.
I just want to say that I applied for the East Side Washington grant, and that grant has already expired in September. So, you know, even if we want to give them assistance, the grant expired, I think, September 9th or 10th. It already expired, and it was fairly simple to apply. I did it in less than an hour, and it is very, like, it was just asking just basic information about your ID, business license number, and things like that. So it was very simple.
All right, we'll go ahead and vote on the amendment. The amendment to the main motion is to move city facilities repair and maintenance of $425,000 be moved into fiscal sustainability. All in favor? The motion was made by Councilmember Lakota, seconded by Councilmember Clark. All in favor of the amendment, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, 7-0. All right.
Madam Mayor, I have an amendment.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to amend that we move $200,000 from fiscal sustainability to the business and nonprofit organization grants, making that total $400,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, to move $200,000 to the, thank you. It's to move $200,000 from the fiscal sustainability to the business and nonprofit. Councilmember Villasenor, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Sure. Thank you. From the very beginning, I've been clear about my intention that I believe that this money is made for small businesses and to help small business. I know you disagree. You don't have to shake your head at me. I mean, it's called ARPA. It's called the R in ARPA stands for relief, and it's a relief not only for our city but for businesses in our city and others in our city. We could have used it in a number of different ways, and we are choosing to. And I'm choosing to put this forward because I believe that small businesses make this town what it is. I mean, we don't have big monster corporate businesses here. We have businesses that are run by individuals and families who are making the best of it so far. And I want to make sure that we support them. Now, we have moved this money out, and I voted for that. I think we should use REIT money for capital things. That's a great thing to use it for. But it does free up more money for us to give, to support the businesses. And here it is. So I'd like to move it to $400,000, and hopefully it provides them a bridge to get to their own financial, their own fiscal sustainability.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, would you like to add to that?
No, that was very well said.
All right. Okay, any further discussion? Councilmember Clark, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Newing. So we heard a public commenter earlier, and there's a apparent assumption out there that three of us hate business, right? I mean, of course, we vote for fiscal sustainability, therefore we must hate business, right? I mean, it's not a direct line, but some people make that connection. So by helping the people of Newcastle, which there's 13,400, right? So that's the heart of Newcastle, the people, right? The businesses are super important, obviously, because it works together. But if all the businesses fell off the earth, there'd still be 13,000 residents. If all 13,000 residents fell off the earth, the businesses are not going to survive, right? So it's pretty clear to me that our responsibility is to all the residents, is in providing relief and allowing a fiscal sustainability such that we don't have to go to the residents and ask for taxes, which is the other alternative. Then we're allowing the residents to have more spending money to come and participate in the community. So it's our responsibility, the greater responsibility, to all the residents of the community. And that's a much bigger pot. So that doesn't make me anti-business. It makes me pro-Newcastle. And I understand that it's really easy to say, it's popular to say, let's move this money here and here. Somebody said earlier in the comment period that, the purpose of this money, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is the relief is implied that it was only for one specific thing, but I disagree. The relief is for the Newcastle community as a whole. Without fiscal sustainability money, your property taxes are going to go up, your ask from the city is going to go up, right? So, no, I'm opposed to sending money away from fiscal sustainability when we're going to need it. The economy is crashing. It's sad, unfortunate. People are going to suffer. Everybody's going to suffer. They're already suffering. We need that money in reserve for that point in time so we don't have to come begging to the community for more money. So I will not support this motion.
Okay, there's an amendment. Oh, Councilmember Charbonneau, is that your hand up? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Villasenor, for just honestly showing initiative and taking a stab at what we can do with this money. I think responding to some of my colleagues, I'm very, I think there's a large human element to this that we're missing. I've worked with, I went to school with a lot of folks that did work at some of our local businesses. I've coached kids that do work at a lot of our local businesses. And I think, what we're discussing now, it's very abstract. The idea of a one-to-one comparison of giving $200,000 to local businesses will lead directly to taxes. I don't think that's a fair assumption to make. I think it's very callous, and I think that's ignoring the human element of all of it. And the idea of sitting on $200,000 more that will help us with these, financial projections that are well more than $200,000, that are going to need well more than the entire of the fiscal sustainability money that's there to be addressed. I think you can say that in the abstract, but the very real scenario we're facing is that there's businesses that are coming to us and telling us we do need help. And we've already hearing about how we're missing grant opportunities. if these businesses shut down, I think it would be, you know, I don't mean claustrophobic, I think it would be terrible from the human element. I think it would be terrible to, you know, for the workers, it'd be terrible for the business owners, but from an economic standpoint, our revenue sources start to close down too. And that's just, inaction does have a cost, and it's just something that we need to be having a serious conversation about. I do want to give these relief to business owners. I was more iffy on this at first, you know, not coming from a business background myself, but the more I've studied it and the more conversations I've had, yeah, I think this is a very good idea, and I'd be open to discussing more down the line too with, again, the very large pot of money we have that we haven't used for anything. So I don't think the all or nothing conversation and attitudes that are being posited are productive. I think we need to, you know, we talk about listening to folks when folks actually come and talk to us, when we hear about other places closing down, and then, you know, I think there's folks that need to be listened to. So I'm very strongly in support of it.
Okay, the amendment on the floor is to transfer $200,000 from fiscal sustainability to business and nonprofit. The amendment was made by Councilmember Villasenor, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock. All in favor of the amendment, please state aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it 4-3 with Council Members Clark, Lakota, and Griffin dissenting. The motion, the main motion as amended is Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. I move to amend Resolution 2022-910 to prevent any additional funds be spent on consultants during its implementation.
Second.
Can I get a point of clarification, please? I don't believe these funds are being paid to a consultant, any portion of them? Am I misunderstanding something?
I'm not talking about any money that we're using. I'm talking about additional funds, as in funds, like city funds. You can insert the word city in front of the word funds, if that will help.
Can I get clarification on the cancellation of a contract purview? Because I don't think that's a council call. I mean, it would be a cancellation of a contract, is that correct?
Let me rephrase my amendment, thank you. I move to amend Resolution 2022-910 to prevent any additional funds beyond what is already allocated be spent on consultants during its implementation. Thank you.
But again, it's not up to council to cancel a contract.
I don't think we're canceling a contract. I guess I want clarification on, are we talking about in the implementation of
So
the
we currently have,
the implementation action plans is what you're talking about?
so what's going to happen, we have paid management partners a lot of money, and my understanding, speaking with Councilmember Lakota from the recent Finance Committee meeting, is that there's not much money left in the bucket of original management partners funds. So, knowing how this works, there's going to be an action in the Finance Committee to spend another gob of money on consultants to continue on this process, and I'm opposed to that. So my motion addresses that I don't want to continue spending money from a bottomless pit to just do stuff that, you know, over and over and over. So that's the heart of my resolution. If it's not completely clear, that's what I was trying to get at.
Director Palmer, looking on the wrong side of the room.
I guess I have a problem with that because one of the action plans, I believe it's item 2, is to get technical assistance. So does that mean in this motion that we can't get technical assistance? That's my question.
Okay, it's been moved by counts. I know, that's fine. Do you guys want to take 5? Want me to move?
Just point of clarification from the clerk, Councilmember Clark. Is this a motion essentially directing the city manager not to use funds in the way that you've described, despite the fact that he might have the appropriation authority, help me out, Don, the authority to spend them because of the amount of money without council's approval, regardless of, sorry, I'm not making my point very clear. What I'm trying to determine is whether this is a motion to direct the city manager to do something, notwithstanding the fact that he would normally have the authority to do it based on the amount of money that we would be talking about.
It seems to me that this would violate, and Curtis, I look to you, violates the purchasing policies and guidelines that the city manager can now make.
I mean, there's the purchasing guidelines, and then there is just also the greater idea of directing the executive to use funds in a specific way from an administrative perspective versus a legislative perspective. And so, you know, the council absolutely controls the purse strings, but how the city implements that direction is an executive level decision. And I do think that the purchasing policy gives the staff and specifically the city manager the authority to spend certain funds without having to come back to council for that. I believe the number for I will not sit here and quote the number of the city manager's authority, but there's a number.
Yeah, it's like 25,000 for something and 50,000 for another number. So this would violate that.
So I'm a little bit uncertain as to whether the direction I'm hearing is to go ahead with the motion, or is it struck?
That'd be a parliamentarian, I guess, opinion on whether I mean, legally speaking, I don't think that you could. I think it becomes suspect as to whether or not you can have the motion to amend or direct or alter the authority that has been given the city manager in the existing purchasing policy of the city. And so without amending that policy, that would be what would need to happen. And it could, you know, I mean, I don't want to make the motion for somebody, but that, you know, you would have to amend that to carve something out. Whether that's temporary or permanent, but you'd be limiting his scope of authority without coming back to council to ask for it. So, you know, staff can always come back to council and say, hey, can we hire consultant X or Y? And either council makes a motion to approve that or doesn't make a motion, or the motion's made and it's denied. But as we sit here today, the city manager has explicit authority without asking for it to do whatever he believes is in the best interest of the city through the purchasing policy.
So the clerk is, as the clerk, I want to just make a couple of points. First of all, if this motion as it currently sits were to pass, I would interpret it not as I would not interpret it as something that it could not be. So I would not interpret it to be a motion to change the city's purchasing policy, because that would need to be done by, I'm not sure if it's resolution or ordinance, to be honest with you. Haven't looked it up. And that's not what this motion does. So I would view it as a motion to direct the city manager in how he conducts the business affairs that the city attorney was just referring to. That's the first thing. Second question is, if none of this, the money that is the subject of the implementation action plan is actually intended to be used for the purposes described in the motion, as parliamentarian, I would be unclear as to whether that's germane to this resolution. I'm not saying that the motion itself is improper or out of order, but I'm not positive that it's an amendment to this question. And I'm not sure, other than, without thinking about this ahead of time, not completely sure whether that is something that is in order to do under this item of business, or how you would end up getting that onto an agenda to do it, if not now, as an amendment to this resolution. I'm unclear.
That's where I was with my original question about we're not expending pandemic relief funds for any consultants at this point. So I'm really, I don't know if it's my call, but I am really inclined not to move forward on this motion.
You could certainly rule the motion
Not
improper on the basis of germanity, if that's how you view it. My question would be, since it's a otherwise legitimate action for the council to conceive of taking, what would be the vehicle by which the council member can bring it? So that the council can decide on whether or not it's a good idea.
Go ahead.
That's okay. I'm just gonna.
Okay, I'm gonna make a suggestion. I apologize for interrupting. Sorry, sometimes it takes me a while to get around to a solution. If this motion were ruled to be out of order on the basis of germanity, the motion could still be entertained by the council, provided you waive the rules to take it up. You've already, you see, the problem is you've adopted your agenda for the night. We're now into an area where you all as a group didn't agree to talk tonight. So you have to overcome that. And unfortunately, we are taking a lot of time to figure that out. But
You've confused me more. Deputy Mayor Sherlock, go ahead.
I'll just want to say, if we vote on this amendment, it has already wasted so much time that I am not in favor of it.
Councilmember Griffin.
The intent of the amendment was not to limit the city manager and his duties. It was meant to take care of what's being done in the economic development and other areas of spending money, not on consultants, but putting the money where it should go to.
Yeah, regardless
we're
of the
going to
intent of
vote
the
on the-
amendment,
we're-
that doesn't change the effect of
No.
the amendment.
It doesn't, and we're just going to get this one, get through this.
I just want to say one more thing, and I apologize for having to do this. I try not to speak on the fly at all, anything. But there is a major issue here, a structural question over directing the city manager on how to do day-to-day operations of the city, and that's a it's a separation of powers issue. Right? He's the executive branch, so he takes action based off of direction from you, and how that happens is really within his purview. And you know, you can dislike what the city manager does and how he does it, but you can't legislate how he does it.
Let me add something here. First of all, I don't care that this has taken a long time, right? This is important to me, right? So too bad, right? So, you know, if we said to the city manager, regardless of his purview, don't buy that truck, even though that truck is $5,000, right? That would be a directive to the city manager, and that falls under that dollar amount, right? So how is that any different than what I'm doing here? I'm saying, don't spend any more money on all this stuff because we've pissing money down the drain over and over and over, and we don't get anything out of it. And so I'm fed up. So that's why I'm doing this motion. And maybe I said it wrong, but I'm not taking away anybody's purview or anybody's authority. I'm just making a point here, and I want to vote on it. So that's it.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to explain the structure of, even if a motion were to pass, the motion can't infringe on his day-to-day operations and the use of the funds. And when somebody comes, he has authority and to buy certain things under a threshold. And I actually don't believe the council can direct him not to use the discretion how he believes he should within the authority that council has already given him. You could remove the authority, and he would have to come and ask for everything, but the authority has been granted.
The question is not one of overall. The point is that you can't selectively remove the city manager's authority to spend money according to policy that the council as a whole has already granted him.
Thank you, and thank you, Attorney Chambers, for your comments. That furthers my need to rule this motion as not germane to this topic, and we will not be moving this amendment forward. So with that, we have a main motion that has been amended twice. And that motion on the floor right now is to adopt Resolution 2022-910 to move $425,000 from the city facilities repair maintenance to the fiscal sustainability, and move $200,000 from the fiscal sustainability to the business and nonprofit bucket. So with that, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. 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 Opposed? No. Ayes have it, 4-3. Moving on to item number 11.2, discussion of scheduling study sessions. City Manager Pingle. I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So wanted to bring this discussion to the council as a whole. Just in my brief time, appreciate all the city council giving me some time, been able to meet with you all individually. And one of the things I've been able to discuss with each of you is scheduling study sessions or having more regular study sessions. I think there's a lot of utility in using study sessions to talk about various topics and getting general direction from the council as to how staff should move forward or bring stuff back to the city council, so that there's been at least some significant discussion, and maybe we can hone some of the things that we bring back to the council to take action on by doing so. And so just a couple of the options, and obviously there's more options than the ones that I threw at you, but kind of the two options I talked to everybody about was we can pick an extra day during the month as a standing study session day, or we can do study sessions prior to regular meetings, or maybe even to get started we could have at least for one of our two regular meetings during the month, schedule a study session starting at 6 before a regular meeting at 7, just so that we're having them more often. We're able to cover more topics more often, so we're able to. I think it'll maybe not right away, but one of the things that I've experienced, in previous positions is that it'll hone what we do in city council meeting. It helps us get some of those discussions out in the open and being talked about without having to take action on an ordinance or a resolution or have some final action before maybe we're ready to do that. And so just wanted to get that council out in the or that discussion out in the open with the whole council, and maybe have some direction moving forward as to how to address that.
Thank you. And just to note very quickly that study sessions are open to the public. We do not take public comment during them, but they are open to the public. So it's not, we're continuing that transparency. So, questions, comments? Councilmember Charbonneau.
Thank you. I think this is an incredible idea for a lot of different reasons. One thing I'll note at the start, the City of Renton, their council has about an hour committee of the whole, but similar purpose before each of their meetings. And their meetings, I would say, are generally very efficient. What I think this does for us is we can look at a lot of topics that we haven't done as much of a deep dive on, and I think can be, educate us as well too. We're all human. A lot of us work, have other responsibilities. Dedicating and putting that time on the calendar to actually go over a lot of those items would be really helpful. I think for example, I think when I was looking at tenant protections recently, I had to spend 2 hours of my own time going to talk with Deputy Mayor Sherlock about it because I wanted to answer questions she had, and having that built in does a lot of utility for us. I think also having that time ahead of time, we can work out potential amendments and potential motions we might have so that staff can look at it and not have to address it live and try to figure out what works and what doesn't, and maybe we can get some amended language to that motion so that it can purvey the purpose that we want without it getting killed by process. And I think it does so much for us. I think currently our planning calendar process is a little murky. I put, for a similar reason to the spirit of this, of meeting more and having more conversations, I put an item about meeting frequency with Deputy Mayor Sherlock on the planning calendar earlier this year. We haven't quite talked about it either. There's a lot of topics I'd like to broach. I think we could all understand more. I think we can make more informed decisions for people that way. So I would be in favor of a model where we do perhaps at 6 p.m. Before each meeting. We can do it in a phasic manner and maybe try, I think City Manager Pinglet suggested doing it for one but not both meetings in a month, and moving from there. I think we can try it in a lot of different forms, and I'm open to the conversation, but I really, really implore my colleagues to not, if you don't like the format that we're talking about tonight or whatever is proposed down the line, don't wave this idea off. I think this gives us a lot of range and helps us be better public servants.
For the Councilmember Clark.
I agree with my colleague on the necessity for these meetings. I would just question the timing. I would be a little weary of a 6 o'clock because we might be talking about something and we run out of time, or there's an executive session that pushes us till 5 o'clock or something. That's not appealing. So I would be in favor of a separate day of the month, like a Monday. I think when I talked to the city manager, we suggested a Monday of the month, for example. Then if we're talking about something, we don't have to stop on a dime and we can continue. But I do think this is important. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We're not making any decisions about this tonight, are we? No, I mean, I do believe we need to have more time, and study sessions are great, and I want to have that time, and I think for me it works out better if we do come in before the meeting on the same night. As someone whose schedule is relatively packed, it's always difficult to give up another night in the month when we do a lot of other things outside of this as well. So I'm committed to study sessions. I love the idea, and hopefully we can work at just from a schedule standpoint.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock.
Yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. I think I would agree with Councilmember Villasenor. I think it's a little easier to just do it on the same nights that we're already here. But I do share the concerns of then if we do have a executive session, we need to fit in there? Does that mean we have to come earlier? Because that's difficult sometimes with life, and we also don't get to eat, so.
So just a couple of comments on that, because I did hear some concerns about if we needed Zach. And I think what we could do is, first of all, we're talking about maybe once a month for these. And not that we would ever push off anything pressing and not have an executive session, but this type of meeting can also be canceled if something came up for exec and we need to meet PDQ. You know, another option is to look at our agenda and do we have what would an estimated end time be of that meeting? And, you know, I really try to be efficient for these meetings. And, you know, maybe we do exec afterwards. So there's a lot of options there. But I would agree that I definitely prefer first or third Tuesday because of my personal schedule as well.
Just quick comment. So I know it's not always going to work out because there's going to be times when something comes up and we need to do executive session. But we can certainly try to play that into our schedule as far as, okay, let's try to make sure we're doing our executive sessions on weeks that we're not doing study session. That doesn't always work out because sometimes we're not decided that far in advance that we need an executive session, so that doesn't always work out. But just throwing that out there, we can try to be as deliberate as possible as to try not to have a study session when we're going to have an executive session also.
Councilmember Charbonneau.
Just mainly a point of clarification for you, City Manager Pingle. What more would you need? Would you need, I imagine this wouldn't be an ordinance. Would you need direction from council to move forward with this? What do you need to move forward other than just us expressing, you know, support here? Are you good to go?
I would, if in general we're open, and so I'm gonna think out loud a little bit. If the council is generally open to doing a study session before regular meetings, at least to start with, we can schedule those. I think we can schedule those as a special meeting, the same as we would schedule an executive session or anything before the meeting, without changing anything. I'm going to ask any of my colleagues sitting to the right of me to correct me if I'm wrong. If we decide to do a different day during the month, I think we need to change council rules, or we need to then. Or we would need to then, we could put on consent or whatever, we would need to schedule those in advance and take action to schedule those specifically what days we're going to do. So a common practice where cities do have regular study sessions, generally they'll take one of the meetings towards the end of the year to schedule all of the study sessions for the following year. And they'll specifically decide on those dates. So we would either need to change council rules or take other specific action to schedule specific study sessions if we're going to use a different day other than our regular meetings. But if we're going to use regular meeting dates, we can schedule special sessions for those.
Would you?
So I'd like to just interject on that. The study sessions can be scheduled as special meetings, regardless of whether they take place before your regular meeting or some other time during the month when you would not normally meet. If you want to set up these study sessions to be regular meetings, then yes, a procedure change and possibly an ordinance change might also be needed because I believe your schedule is defined in code. However, the study sessions do not have to be regular meetings in order for you to hold them. Understand that we have new law in the state of Washington. If you are going to take final actions, voting on measures, whether it's ordinances and resolutions or just motions, you have to provide an opportunity for public comment, which is not the intent with a study session.
Thank you. Just my other piece of direction would be when we come with sort of the study session framework, it's not sounding like any action is needed on our end. I was trying to I was like, oh, do you need a motion, Scott? Let me know, but no, we're good. I would direct staff to come with a fleshed out framework of if I want to get a topic on a study session, what do I do? If I want to talk about a certain thing in a study session, what do I do? And how we can go about that.
So I don't think, as far as getting, and again, I'm going to ask my colleagues over here to correct me. So I don't think the process that we have in place would change for getting an agenda topic onto an agenda for our council meeting, whether it's a regular meeting or a study session.
Councilmember Griffin?
My concern would be how much can you get accomplished in 1 hour? You know, if you really want a study session, you may need more time than an hour, or you wind up doing an hour every meeting. But it breaks up the pattern of if you got something going, you never get it finished because of you've got 2 weeks apart or 3 weeks, whatever.
Yeah, I think that can be a challenge for sure, depending on the topic. Again, just previous experiences that in my previous position, we had a standing third meeting in the month that was specific to a study session. It was limited to 2 hours, but generally we take on 3 or 4 topics in those. And so I think if we came with a topic or two for an hour, we could knock that out. If we find that that doesn't work, we can make an adjustment.
Okay, further? All right. Do you have enough information? Thank you. Okay, after I find my agenda, public comment. So any further public comment from the audience? Yeah. Oh boy. Please state your name and neighborhood, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Jeff Newing, live down by Little Rhodey Farm. I want to thank the 4 council members that voted for the extra $200,000 to go to business, which I think is, I thought could have been the $400,000, should have gone to the business people to help them out. The comments I'm making right now are my own comments. They're not any comments that were given to me by council members. And I think Mr. Clark, Councilmember Clark knows what I'm talking about. Email conversation that we had about some of the stuff I say in public comment comes from a certain council member. That's not true, because I'm here listening to what goes on in this meeting. I'm standing up addressing something that happened tonight. Now, the 3 council members that voted against this continually say that they support business. I challenge you and recommend you go out and talk to the business owners and ask if they think you support them, because they'll say no. I've talked to them. And tonight just verifies the fact that you kind of support the businesses, but you really don't support the businesses the way you council members should. Thank you.
Further public comment? And how about virtually? Thank you. I'll close the public comment. Planning calendar to city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll note a couple of things. The October 18th City Council meeting includes our first budget hearing on the preliminary budget. We'll add to that the city manager work plan for approval as well, which isn't currently on the planning calendar. But as we discussed, we'll add that also. I think it's important, just for the public's benefit, that that you know what the city manager's work plan is and what the council is directing the city manager to do. I will just note, we don't currently have any general action items on for October 18th, but we have the public hearing as well as several consent items. I think that's all the notable things. And then stay tuned for a study session.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I actually have a motion. I move that a discussion item be added to the general business section of the October 18th council meeting, the Dormant Council Economic and Community Development Committee. I'll write it down. And I'd be happy to expand on this.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Charbonneau, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, that a discussion item be added to the general business section of the October 18 council meeting titled Dormant Council Economic and Community Development Committee. Councilmember Charbonneau, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. So just because I know this question will come up, typically the process we had for moving things onto an agenda was to get another council member to email with you to the city staff, and then it gets put on the planning calendar, and then it gets scheduled at a later date. But it is germane, as I have I have counterparts in other cities that are council members that have told me they go through this process to just make a motion to discuss something at the next meeting. And this is something I'd like to discuss. I've reached out to folks about it, and I haven't got a reply in terms of discussing it here. And I'll tell you why. I think I talked with City Manager Pingle about this. So he was reading through our council operating policies. Currently, we have 2 internal council committees, salary and benefits, as well as the finance committee. We also formerly had a council economic and community development committee that's still listed as a standing council committee. And I'm reading your email here, City Manager Pingle. He believes that all that would need to happen to get that committee going is for the mayor to appoint members to it. And that committee has not been filled for some time, so it's essentially been dormant. I think this is a really critical committee to have. I put in some legwork on this. I attended the executive board meeting with the Newcastle Chamber of Commerce and discussed this with them. I talked with former council member Kameen about this topic, who served on this committee, as well as former council member Simpson, who served on this committee. And I'd like to have a discussion about it. And I'd like to get it moving because, primarily because we're sitting here constantly having conversations about local businesses, constantly having conversations about, we have public records request about like what are the local businesses. Councilmember Claudia talked about how she wanted data, right? There are a lot of purposes this can serve, and it's not clear to me why this is dormant and dead, and I'd like to have a conversation about it. I was moving it during the planning calendar not to surprise anyone, but just because I think it was the appropriate time to do so. And I realize this is we haven't had people move to add a discussion item before, so I was hoping that's not too alarming, but that is my reasoning.
Deputy Mayor Sherlock, would you like to add anything?
No, I was just seconded to hear why Councilmember Charbonneau wanted to speak to it.
Is it possible this item could be ready for discussion on the 18th? City Manager?
As far as information from staff, I think it would be limited to what we have in council policies and procedures, which we can certainly provide.
Okay. And it is an existing committee. It just, we've met a time when we didn't really need it. So let's see. You're good? Okay. All right. It's been moved by Councilmember Charbonneau, seconded by Deputy Mayor Sherlock, to add a discussion item to the general business section of the October 18 council meeting, Dormant Council Economic and Community Development Committee meeting. All in favor, please say aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 6-1 with Councilmember Griffin dissenting. Okay. If staff could accommodate that, thank you so much.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I commend the cleverness of my colleague, and it gave me a good idea. Thank you. Then I can make a motion too. I would like to make a motion to add the subject of homelessness to the October 18th City Council meeting, please.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Lakotia to add the item of homelessness to the October 18 meeting. Councilmember Clark, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you. No, I don't have a form because the thought just came to me, but we've been trying to get this item on the calendar for well over, the previous council members tried to get it on this calendar too. So this is a very important issue that's affecting our community. We've had some issues recently. Somebody will say, well, the staff might not be prepared. I'm not asking the staff to be prepared. We can't ask the staff to prepare for something until they come and say, have anything prepared. I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying we need to talk about it. So if I can get it on this way, let's do it. Thank you.
Councilmember Lakotia, anything to add?
Not much, but yeah, if we can talk about economic development, it's very important that we talk about public safety. Because if our citizens don't feel safe, any development would not help them. So public safety is top, and it's high time we talk about it.
I'd like to pass this. Oh, Councilmember Villasenor, go ahead, please.
I'm just going to say I'm going to support this in all fairness, but really these are discussions that we are creating study sessions for. So
exactly.
That being said, put them on for next meeting, but I won't support any more of these.
City Manager Pingle, Attorney Chambers, is this a possibility from your perspective? We don't even know if Chief Houck will be available.
Jason will not be available. He's out of town. But we can certainly be prepared to answer questions and support wherever the discussion goes. Unless the council has some general direction to bring information back to the council or put specific information in the agenda packet, we don't necessarily have that direction. But we can certainly support a discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that I believe I'm competent to answer at the the discussion when the discussion occurs. But my understanding, it's simply a discussion that council wants to have.
Point of clarification.
Go ahead.
So the motion referred to homelessness as a topic. There's an item on the planning calendar called homelessness and public safety. The clerk would like to know what exactly we're supposed to put on the agenda for the discussion. Councilmember Charbonneau's previous motion was pretty clear in terms of what the proposal was that he wanted to discuss, and I'm trying to sort out how we communicate to the public when they see the agenda that this is something that they want to talk about. Anecdotally, I'll volunteer this, that one of the confusions about this item early on when it went on the planning calendar was that it was simply described as homelessness, and it was unclear. And I think it has, to a certain degree, remained unclear exactly what was being proposed.
I can clarify. Homelessness related to public safety in the city of Newcastle. That should be a little more clear.
Councilmember Charbonneau, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So my request for the council members that are passionate about this would be to, when we're having this discussion, to not put a motion out there that we have to sort of process on the floor. I want to be able to have a meaningful conversation and meaningful consideration. I also think there's a lot of sort of, like, for this topic specifically, I think we should, maybe not for the discussion, but another session, invite King County Regional Homelessness Authority, like invite some of the entities that actually work on these sort of topics. And I think having Jason present for some of it too would be really critical. So yeah, I'll for the discussion and potential study session consideration, whatever it might be, but I want to make sure we're clear on that. Right? I don't want to have to have a discussion and then jump into considering something I don't have the data for right at that, and then just want to make sure all those people have the chance to chime in as well too and talk, because I think that's pretty important.
That's my
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to add the topic of homelessness to the October 18 meeting. All in favor, motion was made by Councilmember Clark, seconded by Councilmember Lakota. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 6-1. Mayor Newing dissenting. Okay. Anything else? I will adjourn the meeting.